All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Flag Tags. And today we have Dr. Rodney Russell here from Munn's Faculty of Medicine. So we're going to start with a few questions.
Thanks for having me.
From my understanding, Dr. Russell, you completed your undergrad in biochemistry at Munn?
I did, yes. I finished in 96, I think.
Okay. So what drew you to the program? And do you think it's changed much since you've been with us?
The program, I loved science. In high school, I wasn't that disciplined. I didn't really like to study. So I used to get, my highest grades in chemistry, physics, math, biology, and then, the other courses I wouldn't do as well because I liked studying the chemistry. I loved doing chemistry and biochem. Well, we did biochemistry in high school, but chemistry, physics, homework, loved it. Just couldn't wait to do it. Total geek. So that drew me to biochemistry because you had the same kind of stuff. And I liked doing lab experiments even in high school. I loved making solutions change color and stuff. That was the limit of it at that point. But then once I got into biochem and the university science courses, I really started to think that I might like to work in industry. Originally was what I was thinking, to do a biochemistry degree and then get a job in a drug company or something, making vaccines or drugs. Yes. When I was there, I believe nutrition was a stream. Biochemistry was, most students did biochemistry, but then I think the nutrition stream was just sort of starting on its own. Now I think it's more established that they're completely separate within the department, I guess. There was no immunology. Dr. Christian's course now in immunology that I contribute to some years. I think there's been a branching out a little bit to a little less hardcore biochemistry and a little bit more applied biochemistry, I feel, but I don't see all the courses. That's just from my the limited few I'm involved with. But I can tell from the honor students that come over to medicine now, and I've even seen cross-pollination at with biology and stuff. So I think the walls are coming down a little bit, the different themes.
No, that's fantastic too, to keep the program diverse and give people so many opportunities to do, different topics and stuff.
What advice would you give your past self if you could, as an undergrad student?
I think when I was doing biochemistry, I was doing it as sort of a means to an end. I had to do these courses to get a degree that I thought was going to give me a job. Now, I didn't think when I was doing biochemistry that I would end up in research, and I'm very glad I did because I love research. I really love doing science, and now I'm really doing science, the science I want to do, not at a drug company or industry where I have to do what the priorities of the company are. But I have my own lab now, and we can do whatever we want to do. We decide to jump on COVID, we're doing COVID research. But what I realized years later, and this is the message I would give to current students is, don't just do the courses to complete the courses. Learn the material and understand it, because what I realized is I had to learn it all again. I forgot amino acid structures. I learned them to pass an exam, and then I forgot them. Years later, I can rhyme off amino acid structures in my head now, no problem, because I need to. I need to be able to say, oh, that mutation in that virus is going to cause the protein to bind better or worse, or bind an mRNA element. All the stuff now with the mRNA vaccines. I understand that stuff now 100 times more than I did when I did biochemistry, because now I need to know it, not just for an exam. I need to understand it. I need to be able to teach it and explain it. So I think the biggest lesson for me looking back was, I studied for exams. I didn't study because I needed to really understand things. Now I'm actually going back and relearning it.
Yeah, and it's a great message now with COVID, because a lot of our tests are open book. So it's a good message to get the students to actually, to learn the material, because depending on what you want to do after, you're probably going to need to actually know it.
And I guess that's the other point, right? Is the fact is I didn't know. When I was in biochem. Now, as soon as I got my master's, that was it. I loved research. I love the whole idea of doing research. I'm a very social person. So in research, you're going to conferences and you're presenting your data to people you've never met, and then eventually they are people you've met because the same people go to the same conferences. So you end up building this almost like family of scientists around the world, and you feel part of a group that's doing the same thing. And research, gave me that in my life. And I think the point is, I didn't know for sure how I was going to apply the biochemistry when I was learning it. So I think, again, take in as much as you can, because you never know where you'll end up and how relevant the stuff you're learning might be. Even though at the time you might be just wanting to get it done for the exam and move on. But later on, you might realize, oh, that's actually, I need to go back and get out, my biochemistry books are still there on my shelf, because sometimes I go look at them.
Ask, when did you decide that this was the career path you wanted to take?
Yeah, so that was it for sure. During my master's, and I think, unfortunately, I still hear this now, and I think the stuff you're doing now, this podcast and the social events that you guys are holding, they're really important, because I don't know if they were in place. I think they were in place when I was there, but I didn't do an honors at the time, and I think the honors students sort of knew there was research happening outside of the faculty of or outside of the department. But now I find, I didn't really know how to apply the research. I really thought, research in biochemistry meant get a job in a drug company. I didn't realize there was so much research happening at Memorial. I knew there was lots of excellent research happening within biochemistry, because I knew the people doing it. I knew the honor students, I knew the grad students, because they were TAing our courses and demonstrating our labs. But I didn't realize how much, not just medicine, in the whole university, I mean, the ocean sciences stuff, everything. It's researching every topic that we have here. So basically what happened was I got a job for a little while in a lab in the faculty of medicine, and that was when I really got immersed in research and realized I liked it. And fortunately, it was Dr. George Karyaniotis, who I worked with for a little while in immunology, who said, you really love what you're doing and you're good at it. You should do a PhD. And I remember thinking, PhD? No, I'm not cut out for a PhD. But then I started, and he encouraged me to do a master's. So I started a master's with Dr. Michael Grant, which was HIV research, and that was my first taste of virology. And I really just loved the whole idea of studying viruses, diseases relevant to humans. I knew people with HIV. This was the early 90s, right? Or late 90s. I mean, this was when HIV was really, a problem, even here in the province, right? So it was really, nice for me to have an opportunity to work on HIV, and then to think about having a future in that was just awesome, right?
Awesome. Yeah, we're really trying to also encourage, using this podcast, students to get involved with research as well, to kind of test those waters the same way you did.
Yeah. And I think there's more opportunity now. But back then, we didn't have the internet, remember? That was 94, 95 was when I was doing third and fourth year biochem. And I remember hearing about the internet. The grad students knew about it, but as an undergrad student, I didn't actually know what it was yet. I heard it, I knew it was coming. I knew it was going to be this huge thing, but I didn't realize it was going to be something that everybody was going to use. And at the time, I thought, it's not something I need to understand. And then by the time I got in my master's, we got our first email accounts. And now, I mean, the whole world is web-based, especially this year, right?
Yes.
So again, that's another little message that, embrace everything new that comes, because you never know how far it's going to go, right? Or at least, consider it. I wouldn't say embrace everything new, but consider it.
Okay, so this next question is, what does your daily schedule look like? And it's a little bit about your research interests.
I'm going to answer that in a two-part answer. So before I had children, my schedule was work whenever I wanted to work. And then, basically I would work, I don't know. There's flexibility. So the nice thing about science is you can take a day and, you can work a 12-hour day one day and a 6-hour day the next if you want. That's one of the perks of the job. But I was pretty hardworking. I still am, but I think I used to waste a lot of time. I spent a lot of time talking to, colleagues in hallways. But my day was typically, 9 to 6, 8 to 6, 8 to 7, somewhere between 8 and 10 hours a day. And then many nights I'd, go home and work more. I'd always work a little bit on the weekends. And then we had children, and that changed everything, because I want to be a good dad. and you can't count on pulling all-nighters anymore, because if your little one gets sick, that's it. You don't get to work. So I had to totally change the way I work. So now I still work. I mean, COVID's made us work pretty hard again, but I'm generally a 9 to 5er now. I go home, have about 3 hours with my little girls and my wife, and then unfortunately most nights we get the computers out and do a couple of hours work again. But she's a teacher, and it's annual reports time, and I'm just everything is busier now with COVID. So I'm finding I have to work pretty much most nights now. We don't work much weekends, but if I didn't have children, or if the girls were older, I'd probably be working a bit on weekends now too. But it's because I want to. I'm doing more than I need to do because I want to do that.
So what'd you say? So I know this is an extension to the first part of the question. I know a lot of students think like research is kind of like topic heavy and it's going to take a lot of your hours, and they may decide that they don't want to go into it because they want to have like work-life balance. And so what you're saying here is it's completely possible to have like a work-life balance between doing research.
Yes, definitely. I think, I mean, I'll be honest, right? The most ambitious, well-known, famous scientists, they're devoting most of their waking hours to their work. But if that's the point, and this is what I tell my grad students who come to me with the same question, it's a choice. And I use the I call it this, sort of the soldier versus general analogy. You want to be, doing a bit of work, working in your own lab, fighting whatever disease you're fighting, working with your grad students on a daily basis. You can have a lab with 3 people in it and be a hands-on supervisor in the lab all, lots of time, with your students, or you can be a general, which means you're, in an office doing paperwork, writing proposals on Zoom calls these days, with a pyramid beneath you. So like higher level, postdocs, training grad students, training undergrads. And I've worked in labs where there's been, 30 people, and it's a pyramid. You've got a supervisor at the top who really just meets with the postdocs, and then, the postdocs supervise the PhD students, the PhD students supervise the undergrad students, and the master students are in there too, of course. But the answer to your question is it's your own choice. If you want to be a big shot, you're going to have to work more than average. It's not a 9 to 5 job if you want to really be a high flyer. Now, once I think deciding to have children was almost saying that's it. There's going to be a limitation to how much time I'm going to put into my work, because I want to be, I want to have children, I want to have a family. So, I don't work weekends now, period. And I'm proud of that, because that's my little girls' time. They're 2 and 4, and I'm not going to be, in my office or in the basement right now in my second office, when they want to go make snowmen. That's it. Like those years are too valuable. So I've made the choice. I'm going to work as hard as I can, certain hours a day, to do as good as I can, and be, whatever I want to be. But I'm going to be a good dad too, and a good husband. I know I'm being a good dad, a good husband, bad dad. That's my But the answer is yes. You can have a life. But you have to find a balance between what you want. If you want to be a big shot, then you have to be willing to give up some of the personal life. But if you want to, have a little bit of both, it's definitely possible.
Perfect. And what would you say are some of your like research interests? Are you still like accepting students for master's programs and stuff? So if students were looking to get interested in working with you, either at undergraduate, graduate level, what kind of work would they be doing?
Yeah. So right now, what's happened now, of course, is we're in the middle of hopefully at the beginning of the end of a pandemic. But what's happened now is all grad students kind of got extended, right? So my master's students, a few of them would have finished and been doing something else this fall, or even this Christmas, and I would have been probably looking to take new people this September, but that didn't happen. We didn't even know if anybody could serve. We didn't know if anybody was going to be working at all in September this year. We were working. Our lab was back at reduced hours. But what that meant now is most students got delayed a little bit. So I kind of decided to just keep all the students I currently had and give them extra time. I'm fortunate enough to have funding right now, so And there's been relief packages. We've received some money back that we spent on students when they couldn't work. Their stipends and stuff. So it's been, extending students has been very facilitated on all levels. The university and the federal level for funding. So I think I'll have students finishing probably in the spring, and then I'll be looking to take people in the fall for sure. I think our faculty as a whole has taken less honor students this year because we didn't know if they'd be able to work. So it was really hard to commit to a student. Plus, at the beginning, we were told we couldn't have too many students in the lab. So, when you can only have 3 or 4 people in your lab and you have 7 or 8 students, you have to prioritize the students you already had. You can't take new students and impact the programs of the students that are already there and very stressed and very anxious about, not just losing time, but not knowing how much time you're going to lose and how much time you might lose again. There could be another lockdown after Christmas. Who knows, right? So I think we all, unfortunately for the students looking for spots, it was a hard year to find places, but we'll get through it together, right? So to answer your question, yes, of course, I'll be taking students later on. Research-wise, we're doing, most of our work now is focused on viral pathogenesis, so how viruses cause cell death, the whole inflammasomes, pyroptosis, the different kinds of cell death. We also have an insert project that's basically looking at ways to tag viruses with fluorescent molecules so we can do imaging and cool microscopy with them. So that's the 2 main projects. And of course, now we have a COVID project going. And we've got funding for that. And we're looking at we're currently looking at the antibody responses in people who were infected with the SARS-CoV-2 virus back in the spring of this year. But now with the vaccines coming, already being administered in the province, we're hoping to set up a study now looking at pre-post vaccine, so to actually measure whether Newfoundlanders responded well to the vaccines. So theoretically, we'd get your blood today, and then if you get the vaccine tomorrow or next week or a month from now, we could look at what level of antibodies you made. And my interest, of course, is the neutralizing antibodies, the specific kind of antibodies that literally block the virus from getting into cells. That's sort of what I'm curious into. Not just the antibodies that help fight the disease, but the ones that could prevent infection, which to me is the gold standard. The holy grail of a vaccine is that the virus can't even get into your body. It'll get into your body, but it can't replicate. So that's where we're headed with that.
That's awesome. You sound like you guys have some really interesting research going on for sure.
I think so. Granting agencies and journals that we submit our work to will agree.
Awesome. So speaking of the COVID situation, I guess, here now, given your expertise, could you comment on vaccines and just the current situation in general?
The biggest concerns with these vaccines right now is, and it's a legitimate concern, right? We don't know the long-term effects of this vaccine. We can't know, and that's sort of, I've been active on social media about this. It would be nice to do long-term effects studies. It would be great to test this virus for 5 years before we administer it, to thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. But this is an emergency. We have to, as scientists, we have to go with what we believe. And I believe that these vaccines, at least the 2 that we're looking at now, the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines, I believe they're safe. I believe compared to, so the interesting thing is these are different, these are completely novel kinds of vaccines, right? These are RNA vaccines, which I hadn't even heard of myself, other than in some animal model testing. But, normally your vaccines are either live attenuated, so they're weakened versions, or they're killed versions, so the actual virus, but treated so that it's not infectious, or parts of the virus, that can't be infectious. Then there's what I call the recombinant live virus vaccines. So they're sort of a virus that doesn't hurt you too much, but then you take a part of a nasty virus like Ebola or HIV and you put it into the wimpy virus, and then you infect somebody with the wimpy virus, but it contains parts of the bad virus, so you make an immune response against the bad virus while you're dealing with the wimpy virus. So that to me was always sort of the best strategy, because you get your antibodies and your T cell responses if the vaccine is live. Now, what's beautiful about these mRNA vaccines is they're not live vaccines. They're not live viruses, but the immune system thinks they are. And that's the most clear way I can put it. Because the RNA makes the spike protein from the SARS-CoV-2 virus in our cells, the immune system sees that as if there's a virus in there making proteins, although there's no virus. So there's no infection happening. It's just a bit of RNA making a bit of protein. But if you go into the details of the immune system, because that's happening, because the protein is being made in the cells, you get the T cell responses on top of the antibody responses. And I believe that's why these vaccines are showing these crazy high success rates, these 90-95% efficacy rates we're hearing about. I believe it's because they actually boost both arms of the immune system really well. And that might be why I hope they're going to work well. Safety-wise, of course, people are worried about safety. And, we have people who are extremely against vaccines, and then people like me who are extremely for vaccines. But what I realized through all this is that there's a big chunk of people in the middle. And they're not anti-vaxxers, and they're not scientists who just, have to believe it like me because we have to believe in our work. They're the people who want to do the right thing, but they're just scared. And that's okay. It's okay to be scared of these vaccines. They came fast. It's a pandemic. If you think about it, other than the flu vaccine, a lot of adults, 40, 50, 60-year-old people in Newfoundland right now, for example, never actually had to make the decision whether or not to get a vaccine, except for flu. And, the flu is not too hard on that age group. So a lot of my friends, for example, especially the males who never considered getting any of the HPV vaccines, they haven't had vaccines since they were too young to make the decision themselves. So if you think about it, right, it's the first time a lot of people have ever really been faced with the decision. And not to get the flu vaccine, most people don't actually get the flu each year. So, you don't get the vaccine, and you don't get the flu. You figure, I don't need the vaccine. But I think everyone now is really thinking, okay, I might need this vaccine. So a lot of people are faced with the decision of whether or not to get it. And, it is scary. So, my advice to all my friends right now is, we don't have a choice. We have to trust the science, and we have to, do it as carefully as we can. We're not giving it to children yet because it hasn't really been tested in children. So I support the vaccines, and that's all we can do, really.
The first one I have here is, if you were a virus, which one would you be?
Ooh. Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. It depends on what you want, what you're thinking about, right? Because I don't know. Viruses want to live. People, we give viruses brains and personalities, right? We'd say Ebola wants to kill its host. Ebola doesn't want to kill its host. We say HIV wants to hide in its host. HIV doesn't want anything. it's a little bit of RNA and a little bit of protein and lipids. That's it. It has no desires or wishes or plans. We give them personalities. We've given all these viruses little personalities, and they're usually bad. They're usually horrible little devious monsters, right? I think when I think about it, I admire the evolution. I admire the intelligence, if I can call it that, if I give them, characteristics myself. I admire the intelligence of the viruses, the fact that they've learned. Think about it, right? Take Ebola, 5 or 6 proteins, but the Ebola virus can knock out the immune system of the most evolved species on the planet. You got to respect that a little bit. So, not that I'd want to be Ebola, because I think Ebola is a stupid virus. It takes care of itself as a species because it spreads fast, and but the point is it kills its host really quickly usually. So if you're a virus, you're just looking for a place to live, right? That's really what you want to do. You want to survive. You want to propagate your existence as a species. So really, the herpes viruses, any viruses that set up a long-term persistent infection are, in my opinion, the smartest viruses, because they've figured out how to get into another species and stay there forever. And then they spread a little bit, transmit to 1 or 2 people. So I feel like when I teach virology, I say there's 2 types of viruses. There's those that infect a few people but stay a long time in those people, and that's how they exist. That's how they maintain their existence. And then Then there's the Ebola type viruses that get in, blow up their host, and spread to others quickly. So they're constantly keeping their existence, but it's through spreading fast as opposed to coexisting, you know? So there's a whole sort of philosophical paradigm there, I think, that, you know, sort of viruses have two main ways of existing, spreading fast or keeping quiet. So if I had to pick, I think I'd be HIV, because I think HIV is pretty smart. It gets in there. You know, most people don't notice they get it. The virus kind of goes to sleep for a long time, and you know, it maintains its existence. It can spread sometimes, but you know, the retroviruses are pretty smart. They've really figured out how to find a new home. It's hard not to respect them.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny to hear different, you know, talking about viruses in ways like that. It's stuff you don't. It's really informative. It's been really great.
Yeah. Well, we talk even, you know, at conferences where everybody's doing virus research. We say, oh, it's a very smart virus. The virus is not smart. It doesn't have a brain. It has no IQ. It has evolved. That's the real way to say it. It has evolved smart strategies, and ironically, they're almost through chance, right? Because it's all about evolution, right? I think viruses evolve faster than many other species, because, you know, COVID right now popped out of nowhere. Well, we know where it came from, but it came into our species, and it's already adapting to our species. And who knows where it will adapt? Maybe it'll go away like the first SARS. Hopefully, it'll go away like the first SARS. But maybe it won't. Maybe it'll just find a way now to coexist with us, not wipe us out completely, but actually hang around like the other coronaviruses have. So, you know, these smart strategies are interesting, but it's usually just, you know, a mutation that allows an adaptation that maintains the existence in a host, and then suddenly, you know, there's, you know, it's evolution, you know, almost on a microscopic level, right?
That was fantastic, Dr. Russell. Thank you so much for taking the
Call me
time,
Rod. You should call me Rod the whole time. But I figured we'd want to be official.
putting them in, you know, a different perspective. It's great for people, because we're hoping to have students watch this, but as well people outside, and we want to kind of communicate the science to the public. So it's a great way to do that.